إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. So to recap inshallah what we did last week, we were talking about التحاكم إلى الطاغوت, and specifically I'm talking about the shubuhat, the misconceptions or the misunderstandings that people have in relation to this, especially those who they say that it's allowed for us to go to the courts of the kuffar in order to seek judgment, to get rights or something else. So somebody remind me, what is tahakum in the first place?
When two parties
Yep.
take a dispute to a third.
Okay.
It's two or more parties
Yep.
with a dispute.
Yep.
The third party to
Yep.
solve the dispute.
To solve the dispute, yeah, to make a judgment to resolve that dispute. Okay. So those are the three key issues. There's two parties or more. Okay, there is a dispute between them, and they go to a third party who's going to make a judgment about that dispute to resolve it. Okay, and they're going to go there, they're going to resolve the dispute. It's going to be decided by this third party. Okay, so this means that there are certain things which are not considered to be tahakum. Immediately we can rule out certain things that cannot be called tahakum, such as if you go to a police officer, for example, and you order him to guard your house because the EDL are coming, for example. That's not called tahakum because there's no two parties with a dispute, nobody's making a judgment or anything like that. If you go to the local council and apply for housing benefits, that's not called tahakum. There's no dispute, there's no judgment. You're just asking for your rights as a citizen to receive whatever benefits that you're entitled to, obviously without lying or anything like that. Similarly, if somebody was to appeal a benefit decision from the council, is that called tahakum? No, because there may be two parties with the disputes, but you didn't go to a third party because you're saying to the council, reconsider your decision, I deserve more benefit than you've given me. Okay, so you give them a chance, you tell them to look at it again, and then they will review their decision. If they still refuse and then you decide to take them to an independent court, that's when it becomes tahakum to the taghut and it becomes not allowed. Okay, so the understanding the reality, understanding the definition of tahakum is very important for us to understand exactly what falls under that and what does not. So we mentioned a few of these shubahat, and we mentioned some principles in the Sharia that we can use to refute them or to understand the matter more clearly. The first shubha was, people they say, we are not making tahakum, we are just seeking our rights, we're just seeking our huquq, our rights from the judge in the court. So who can give me one of the principles that we said, that we can use in response to this? Anybody? Those who say, we are not making tahakum, we are just seeking our rights from the judge. What can you say about that?
Still wrong, changes name.
Yes, exactly. Changing the name doesn't change the reality of the hukum. Okay, it's still tahakum and it's still not allowed. Like if you drink alcohol and you call it orange juice, it doesn't change the fact that it's still alcohol and it's still haram. Okay, so changing the name doesn't make a difference. So all they've done is they've taken the same act which is being cursed and condemned in the Quran, and they've renamed it and they said it's halal. Okay, and said it's allowed for us. Okay, just like the Prophet ﷺ prophesied that people in the Ummah will permit interest by calling it trade, by calling it a different name, and they'll permit alcohol and permit adultery by calling it another name. Okay, that's what happens today. Nowadays, they don't call adultery, zina, okay, fornication. They call it an affair, romance. Something sounds like some kind of business transaction. Just an affair. Okay, so that is how people have permitted it by a different name. The same thing with the tahakum. Just by changing the name doesn't change the fact that you're still two parties, you still had a dispute, and you still went to a third party for a judgment, which is the tahakum. Okay, call it what you like, it's still the same. Anything else that you can say about this topic? Okay, we'll give another example. Okay, what about the shubha that people say that the Prophet ﷺ, they claim that he made tahakum by going to Mut'ab ibn Adi, the bodyguard, who is a mushrik. So they say therefore we can also go to the mushrik judge in order to protect our rights as well. What can you say about this?
It doesn't fit the definition of tahakum.
Okay.
There was no dispute, it was just contract.
That's right. Do you want to say something else? Yeah, exactly. It's just there's two parties, but there's no dispute. The Prophet ﷺ and Mut'ab ibn Adi, they agreed to have covenant of security. Okay, that he will protect the Prophet ﷺ the way his uncle Abu Talib protected him. That is called a contract or a treaty or a covenant. Is not called tahakum. What about Hilf al-Fudul, the treaty or the pact of interfering or intervening? Okay, Hilf al-Fudul, those people say we can make tahakum because the Prophet ﷺ praised this pact by the mushrikeen, who they agreed that they will prevent the oppression of those who attack and raid, loot the Hajjis. What are we saying in response to that? Come on.
This event, the contract was a contract, and secondly, it wasn't against Islam. It was more
Okay. Yeah. Again, it's correct. It's not tahakum. None of the people there were taghut either. Okay, it's just a pact and an agreement that they will prevent oppression. Okay, it had nothing to do with taking a dispute for judgment to anybody. Nobody said that they're going to seek judgment for man-made laws in Hilf al-Fudul. Okay, so just like if a mushrik was to give sadaqah and give charity to a poor person, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't say it's haram to give charity because the mushrik gave charity. When the mushrikeen, they came together and they made an agreement to do something good, to protect the weak and the oppressed from bullies and looters and raiders. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if I was called to do to a similar agreement, I would accept it. That's all he said. He didn't say we're going to go and murder somebody or commit shirk or to worship idols or seek judgment from a kafir judge or man-made laws. He never said anything like that at all. Okay. What about the argument they say that it's only haram to make tahakum if you reject the hukm of Allah, but we go to the courts of the kuffar while we accept the hukm of Allah and we hate the man-made laws? What do you say about that?
You mentioned the original rules are actions are done with until text says so.
With what?
With
will, yeah.
So it's not permissible to do.
Okay. Elaborate a bit more, or somebody else elaborate a bit more. Give me a good start point. So say again?
Your heart, actually in the tongue. You're saying I believe that you're committing shirk with action.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so it doesn't matter what's in your heart. If you're committing kufr with your limbs and with your tongue, it's still kufr. It doesn't mean that, okay, as long as my heart's okay, I can worship idols, I can insult the Quran, I can fight in the armies of the kuffar, I can do all the kufr with my limbs, as long as my heart is okay. It doesn't work like that. If you do the kufr action, you become kafir. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he rejected anybody to commit kufr after the iman unless they had the duress. Under duress, that's when the will has been taken away. Okay, so we say the original rules is that every action is done willingly and with irada. Okay, it's done with your free will and deliberately. It's not done by accident until there's an indication otherwise. So examples of exceptions to that rule is the one who's under duress. Because duress by definition, al-ikrah, is the one who was forced to do something while he hates it, while he hates to do it. He would never have done it unless he was forced. That's the ikrah, that's the duress. Okay, so that is one thing. And another example of when you have no irada is when you have a slip of the tongue, where you targeted to say one thing but you said something else by mistake. Okay, came out of your mouth wrong. Like the companion who said, "Oh Allah, you are my slave and I am your Lord." Okay, which is kufr. But he said it out of mistake because he was so happy. He was trying to say, "Oh Allah, you're my Lord and I'm your slave," but he got the mixed words mixed up. So that's called adam al-qasd, where he didn't target to do that. He slipped. So here the irada is taken away because he didn't do it willingly. He didn't do it deliberately. Similarly, the one who is asleep, somebody who says something kufr in his sleep, it doesn't count. Or somebody who's insane, it doesn't count. These are the only times when you have exceptions, because there's text, Quran and Sunnah, to prove these things. These are exceptions to the rule. Otherwise, if you're a normal, healthy person and you do an action and you know what you're doing, you are accountable for your actions. You are accountable for all of your actions. Allah Ta'ala said that He will question you, account you for all of your deeds. Okay, for everything that you do. Okay, so this is the principle, inshallah. Where did we stop last time?
Surah 18:104.
18:104.
Just arrived on 18:104.
Okay, I might not have 18:104 here. Did I speak about...
Before that was a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah.
Quote from Ibn Taymiyyah. Okay. Surah Kahf verse 104. Yeah. Okay. So Surah Kahf 104, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, those people who all of their deeds were lost, okay, because they became disbelievers, even though they thought they were doing good deeds. وَيُحْزِنُونَ, okay, they thought that they were doing good deeds. Okay. Okay, so they did the action, okay, which took them out of Islam, and all their deeds were lost, but they thought that they were doing good deeds. What does that mean? That means it doesn't matter if you intend by your kufr good things, and in your heart you say, I really mean good by this tahakum, I'm only seeking my rights, but your actions are kufr. Rather, Allah Ta'ala says in this ayah, those people, even while they think they have good intentions and they mean good by it, what they're doing is kufr, and all of their deeds will be lost. Okay, it doesn't matter after that what their intention was. And it was mentioned on this, it said that this ayah is an evidence against anybody who claims that nobody becomes kafir, okay, except with the intention to become kafir, okay, after the knowledge of Tawheed. I'll repeat it, inshallah. Because Allah said their deeds are lost even though they thought they were doing good deeds. Okay, so the quote says, Imam al-Tabari, he said, this ayah is an evidence against anybody who claims that people cannot become kafir without the intention of kufr. Okay, so this ayah is an evidence against anybody or against those who say or claim that people do not become kafir without the intention to become kafir, okay, without the intention to do kufr. Okay, and he said after the knowledge of Tawheed, I mean after he knew what is the Iman. Okay, this is a tafsir of Surah 18 verse 104. Okay, and then he said, continued. Okay, so I'll repeat again. He said, this ayah is an evidence against those who claim that people do not become kafir without the intention of kufr, or to do kufr, after the knowledge of Tawheed, okay, has reached them. And he said, that's because Allah said their deeds were lost even though they thought they were doing good deeds. Okay, so in their mind, in their intention, in their thinking, they thought, we're doing good by this, we're not doing evil, I'm not intending evil. But Allah said that they're kafir anyway. Okay, so he said this is an evidence against those who think you cannot become kafir unless you're intending kufr. Okay. Also, Imam Hafiz ibn Hajar, okay, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar, in Fath al-Bari, he said, some of the Muslims go out of the deen without meaning to go out of it. and without choosing any deen other than Islam. Okay, so he said some of the Muslims go out of the deen without meaning to go out of it, and without choosing any deen other than Islam. Okay, got that? Okay, and it's slightly different quote, but linked in the same sort of train of thought. He said, and there's a hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that confirms that. Okay, because he said about the Khawarij that they recite the Quran and yet they leave Islam like the arrow through the bow. Okay, so he said there's a hadith of the Messenger that confirms that. Okay, about the Khawarij that they recite the Quran and yet they leave Islam like the arrow through the bow. Okay, and Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, okay, he said about a very similar topic. Okay, is a case of people doing physical, apparent acts of ibadah to other than Allah with a good intention. He said, okay, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he said what they are doing in front of the graves, like asking their help to solve their problems, is exactly what the mushrikeen of the Arabs did before the Bi'athah, before Islam. Okay, to Lat and Uzza. Okay, so he said what they are doing in front of the graves, like asking help to solve their problems, is exactly what the mushrikeen of the Arabs did before the mission or before the coming of Rasulullah. Okay, they did that before to Lat and Uzza. Okay, and he said they used to say, we do not worship them. ما نعبدهم إلا ليقربون إلى الله زلفى. So we do not worship them. We only go there to become closer to Allah. Okay, so even the mushrikeen of the Arabs, they used to say the same thing. They used to do the actions of kufr, but they said, we're not worshipping the idols, we're just going to become closer to Allah. It's only doing it with a good intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And the ulama of Da'wah Najdiyah, they used to say, is that if you say that they are ignorant but they are mushrik by their actions, if you say that they are ignorant but they are mushrik by their actions, then I say written in the books of the fuqaha of this ummah on the chapter of apostasy is that the one who says a word of kufr, even if they did not know it was kufr, okay, they are kafir, and that is an evidence they are jahil about Islam. And if you say they do not know Islam or kufr, then they are kafir asli. I'm going to repeat inshallah, that they are kafir asli. Okay, like a Jew or Christian. I mean, like the non-Muslims, they don't know Islam either. That doesn't mean that they're Muslim, they're kafir still. So he said, if you say that they're ignorant but they are only mushrik by their actions, okay, meaning make excuse for them, say that their deeds are shirk but they themselves are just ignorant and they're not mushrik. Okay, he said if you say that they're ignorant but their actions are mushrik or mushrik by their actions, then we say written in the books of the scholars of this ummah on the chapter of apostasy, is that the one who says a word of kufr even if they didn't know it was kufr, then they are kafir, and that is an evidence they are jahil about Islam, they're ignorant about Islam. Okay. And if you say they do not know what Islam or kufr is, then they are kafir asli. Okay, they are an original non-Muslim. Okay, so if you say that they do not know what Islam or kufr is, then they are kafir asli, original non-Muslim. Now obviously it doesn't mean if you're ignorant about anything you become kafir. But if you don't know the basic fundamental foundations of Islam, the things that make us different from everybody else as a deen, as a religion, then what's to say that you're a Muslim in the first place? Like somebody says, I didn't know Muhammad was a messenger. Well then how did you become Muslim? No? I didn't know that Allah was only one. I thought he might have been two or three. So that means you were never Muslim. Okay? Or he didn't know that the Quran was the word of Allah, that we have to follow it. Okay? If you don't know these fundamental basic matters of the deen, then you were never really Muslim in the first place. You're like a Hindu or a Sikh or a Buddhist, because they don't know either. That doesn't make them people of Jannah, it makes them kuffar. So if we have the same ignorance about the fundamental foundations of the deen, like Tawheed Allah, La ilaha illallah, that we don't worship except for Allah, if we don't even know that, then we were never really Muslim in the first place. And there's no excuse for us about that as well. Okay? So somebody who they did the shirk and the kufr, the clear-cut open shirk, like tahakum to the taghut, but he said, I didn't know that it was shirk, I didn't know we only allowed to seek judgment from Allah, and I only meant good behind it, I only had good intention to get my rights, I was only trying to do this and that. That means the person didn't really understand that Muslims only worship Allah, we don't worship the taghut, that we don't go to the man-made laws. He didn't understand the basic fundamentals of the deen. Okay, next shubha, next misconception. Some people, they argue, they say that going to the courts of the taghut is shirk, but it's shirk asghar. You might not have heard this one, but to be comprehensive, inshallah, let's counter all of those. Okay, some people, they claim is not the greater shirk, is the lesser shirk. Okay, the one does not make you kafir, is what some of the people they say. Okay, and this is usually sort of the fallback plan when they couldn't figure out any other excuse. This is the last excuse. The first response, we say there is no necessity in Islam that the ritual acts of ibadah are for none but Allah. Okay, for none but Allah. Okay, if we put this on the board, inshallah. Ritual worship, okay, is only for Allah. Okay, for only Allah. Okay, and that is going to be one of three. This pen is not very good. Try another one. It's either going to be by the heart, by the tongue, or by the limbs. Okay, by the body. Okay, that's going to be the ritual acts of worship, all the ibadah, all iman, tawheed, is these three. This is what we say when we say al-iman qawlun wa amrun wa i'tiqad. We're saying the iman is sayings and actions and conviction in the heart. Okay, our faith, our iman, is wrong to translate it as something simple, like in the English language, something like belief or faith. Okay, it's wrong to use these words. It's better to use the word iman, because iman is a Sharia term that means everything Allah is pleased with from our sayings and actions, whether hidden or apparent, whether our tongue or our limbs or our heart, whatever we do to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worship for Him. Okay, and the ritual acts of worship, the specific acts of worship that we've been designated to offer for Allah, okay, as we say, what's called manasik, okay, as rites and rituals, like praying, sujood, prostration, ruku', bowing, and so on. They're going to be one of three. Worship by the heart includes things like having tawakkul on Allah, relying on Him, loving Allah, okay, to have hope in Allah. All this is worship by the heart, to fear Allah. Okay, these are worship by the heart. Okay, worship by the heart, and it will have as well manifestation and proof in our tongues and the limbs. Okay, the fact that we fear Allah, okay, is manifested in our limbs because we stay away from the haram. Okay, the fact that we love Allah could be manifested in our tongue by saying, "I love Allah." Okay, so we know, so we can know about this, or by supporting His deen, not supporting the enemies of Allah. So this is how we can see the worship of Allah from our heart, in our tongue and our limbs. Some of the ibadat or the worship is by the tongue, like reciting Quran, okay, like the dhikr, okay, like the combining good, forbidding the evil, da'wah to Islam, motivating the believers for jihad, okay, speaking, these things are acts of worship, of ibadah by the tongue. And you have actions of the limbs, which are acts of ibadah, of worship, okay, such as prostration on the ground, okay, sujood, bowing in the salah, when we bow and make ruku', when you make tawaf, you walk around the Kaaba, okay, going around circumambulating the Kaaba, that is a ritual act. Running between Safa and Marwa, the sa'i, this is as well worship, worship by the limbs, by the body. Tahakum to the taghut, taking your dispute and going to a third party to argue in front of him, for him to make a judgment for you, that is action of the limbs, worship by the limbs. So if I start to write some of these, inshallah. So we can mention here sincerity, love, okay, we say hope, fear, okay, tawakkul. How do you translate tawakkul? Trust or reliance. Okay, these are worship by the heart, by the tongue, reciting Quran, okay, da'wah, okay, da'wah to Allah, to Islam, commanding good. I just put here commanding good, forbidding the evil. Okay, this is you all know what that means, inshallah, yeah? So, commanding good, forbidding the evil. We could say here as well the dhikr, okay, which is the remembrance of Allah, saying things that subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. You can say tasbih, okay, to say subhanallah. You can say dua, okay, action of the tongue as well. And by the limbs we have physical actions, okay, sujood, okay, to prostrate on the ground, ruku', bowing, I just put bowing, inshallah, okay, tawaf, going around the Kaaba, okay, the sa'i, running between Safa and Marwa, okay, tahakum, okay, jihad, okay, these are all actions of the limbs, okay, and you can see obviously, although there will always be overlapping between them, they have their own place, okay, they all have their own place. You don't make sujood with your tongue, okay, unless you're Shia, okay? The Shia, when they in order to be different from the Sunnis in every way, okay, they have a different way of praying. When they go to ruku', they shout ruku', and when they go to sujood, they shout sujood. Okay, so they have a completely ajib, different way of salah. But our ruku' is actual physical bowing. We don't say my ruku' is in my heart. Akhi, did you pray Salat al-Asr? I prayed in my heart. Okay, some people they go beyond the limits. Okay, they want to avoid all the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they want to say it's all in my heart. It's not all in your heart. Some things have to be done by the limbs. Some of the things have to be done by the tongue. Some of the things must be done by the heart. Okay, if you don't actually love Allah, even by saying I love Allah, you're not going to become Muslim. You won't be a believer. Okay, like Allah says that there are those people, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَتَّخِذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَنْدَادًا. There are those people who take besides Allah rivals. يُحِبُّهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ. They love them the way they love Allah. So even if you say with your tongue, I love Allah, La ilaha illallah, but then you also in your heart, you're loving something else beside Allah, that love in your heart will take you to the hellfire. Maybe nobody sees it in the dunya. On the day of judgment, they will be in the hellfire, like the hypocrites. The hypocrites, they conceal kufr in their heart, while in the sayings and the actions they show iman. As far as we are concerned, we can only see the sayings and actions anyway. We can't see the heart. So we judge the people based upon the apparent. We judge them based upon this, because I don't know if somebody is sincere or not. I don't know if they love Allah or not, except by revelation. Allah is the only one who knows inside the chests of the people. We see that, we hear what they say with their tongue, and we see what they do with their limbs. That's how we judge the people. Now, why is this relevant to the topic of, we'll talk about shirk asghar or shirk akbar? It's agreed that offering any of these worship to other than Allah is shirk akbar. Okay? Anybody who does the worship of the limbs to other than Allah, that is shirk akbar, is not shirk asghar. It can never be shirk asghar. That is shirk akbar. If you'd offer any of these worship to other than Allah, okay, you are committing shirk akbar, not shirk asghar. It will take you out of the fold of Islam. Okay? These ones as well, if you offer them to other than Allah, you will become kafir, you become shirk akbar, but nobody knows. Nobody knows what you have in your heart. Nobody knows if you're really sincere or not. Okay? So, the issues of the heart, okay, the worship of the heart, as far as the dunya is concerned, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. So as far as we are concerned from amongst each other, we do not declare somebody to be apostate or not, because we suspect them of worshipping other than Allah in their hearts, because we don't know. Okay, we don't know. Unless that is manifested in the sayings and the actions. For example, okay, there are some actions which, okay, because their origin is only in the heart, and you only see some effects of it, or the impact of it in your sayings and actions, without to actually see real worship or shirk in your actions, you know, some things are considered shirk asghar, like this, like something called tira, okay, or superstitions. Okay, we have as well horoscopes. Okay, or fortune tellers. He'll say the kahin. Okay, the one who claims to know the future is mushrik. But the hadith says the one who goes to a fortune teller, okay, even if he doesn't believe what he says, his salah is lost for 40 days. I mean, he has no reward for his salah for 40 days. Okay, salah will not be accepted for 40 days. So is that person kafir or not? Obviously he's not kafir. He's Muslim. Because we say shirk asghar, okay, as long as he did not combine it with the kufr in his heart. But we don't see the kufr in the heart. That's why we say shirk asghar. Okay? So the one who goes and looks to the horoscopes, he's just looking at it for fun and wants to see what it has to say, that is shirk asghar. Okay? That is shirk asghar, because doing an action which is linked to kufr in the heart, of believing somebody knows the ghaib beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he didn't say he knows the ghaib. He just looking at it. Just went to the fortune teller. Okay? For fun. As a fun day out. Something like this. Okay? Or superstitions. He's not saying that there's something can actually harm me besides Allah. Okay? Besides Allah has the power to harm me or not. But he didn't step on the cracks on the road. Okay? He saw the black cat and he walked a different way. Okay? These kind of things, shirk asghar. Okay? Unless he actually believes the black cat has the power, okay, to benefit or harm me. Okay? Because of the black cat, because I broke the mirror. Because of the one who has had these beliefs and these ideas, if he really believes that they have power beside Allah, they're mushrik, kafir. But we don't declare the one who they had a little bit of a sign of that, like reading a horoscope, or walking a different way because of a black cat, or looking at these bad omens or something like that, or even we say, the ta'weez, the talisman, okay, or the ta'weez, or those things, or we say swear an oath beside Allah. Okay, showing off. Okay, these are all shirk asghar. These are all shirk asghar. Okay. lesser shirk. Okay, they have an element of, okay, indicating or looking like the mushrik. They have an element of doing something which is similar to what a mushrik would do. Okay, but because that shirk is related to the worship of the heart, nobody can really see if they've done it or not, and we've been ordered only to judge by the apparent, not by the heart. Okay, another example is shirk of the words, the terminology. Sometimes people use words which, you know, could indicate shirk. Okay, could indicate wrong belief. Okay, shirk al-alfaz is called. Okay, or shirk terms. How? For example, if somebody says to you, good luck, that's shirk. Do you become kafir? Okay. Why is it shirk? It's because it's denying the qadr. The idea of luck means Allah didn't decree it, it could happen, it's by chance. Okay. But somebody could say it because it's terminology, but they're not actually believing in, you know, anything called luck in opposition to the qadr. Somebody could say, you saved my life. Okay. I thought Allah is the one who gives life, takes life. Okay, so you see the terminology can have mistake in it because somebody have indicate something. Somebody said, I will do so and so, but he didn't say inshallah. So these things are lesser. It doesn't make you kafir, because all linked to, does he have that kufr in his heart or not? And we don't see the heart. Okay, we don't see the heart, we can't check. But the actual worship by the tongue and limbs, there's nothing left to the imagination. It's not about does he believe it or not. These are actions of the limbs. Okay, swearing an oath by other than Allah. The reason why swearing an oath by other than Allah is shirk asghar, okay, is because it's called ta'zeem. It's something that happens in the heart called ta'zeem. Okay, it's called ta'zeem, which is, okay, to elevate. Okay, the reason why we swear oaths is to convince the person that we want to tell the truth, that we're telling the truth. And so you swear on something which is greater and better than you, elevated. Nobody's going to swear on something which is low. Nobody's going to swear on, you know, by the board rubber, okay, or by my shoelace. Nobody's going to believe you. You'll say, okay, yeah, you're lying. Why are you going to, who cares about your shoelace? They're going to say, no, I swear by my mother's life, by so-and-so's grave, and so-and-so. And this is obviously the shirk asghar, because it's involving an element of elevation. Rather, the Prophet said we should only swear an oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, because He's the highest. And that elevation is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But unless somebody is actually saying, no, my mother is like Allah, okay, we don't say then shirk akbar, we say shirk asghar, lesser shirk. Okay, which is why it didn't used to be prohibited and the Prophet forbade it. Okay, it's not the same. It's not the same as you know, apparent acts of worship. So this is why there are some things which are considered to be shirk, but they are lesser shirk. Okay, they are lesser shirk. However, when it comes to the apparent actions, forget about the heart now, because we'll talk about the apparent actions. These two are the apparent. Okay. Okay, and this one is hidden. Okay, this one is hidden. When we talk about the apparent actions of the tongue and the limbs, there is no, you know, way to offer ritual acts of worship by the tongue and the limbs to other than Allah, except that it is shirk akbar. It's always going to be shirk akbar. Like somebody says, I'm going to slaughter in the name of Jesus Christ, but I mean Allah. Okay, I'm going to slaughter in the name of Ali, okay, but I mean Allah. Okay, like the Shia, the Rafida, they do that. They slaughter in the name of Ali, which is why we don't eat their meats. Okay, we don't trust their meat because it's doubtful. Okay, and that makes them mushrik. Okay, so the ritual acts of the tongue and the limbs are always shirk akbar. It's not going to be shirk asghar. Okay. One other point we can mention about this as well. Some of these things, like showing off, like the oath beside Allah, it wasn't always forbidden. At one point, it was allowed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade it. Whereas tahakum to the taghut was always forbidden in all times with all anbiya and was never permitted, was never abrogated. Okay. Another shubha people they make is they say, we will go to the courts, and if the hukum contradicts Islam, then we won't take it. But if it matches Islam, then we'll take it. Okay, then we'll take it. So this is what they're claiming. Okay. Now this is usually made by a group of what's called Jami or Madkhali scholars, especially some of those in Europe. Okay. There's a couple of mistakes in this. The first is the idea of, we look to the end results, the consequences of the action, okay, to decide if it's allowed or not. Okay, so they want to say basically the end will justify the means. Okay, the end will justify the means. Okay, which is rejected in Islam. We don't say, as long as I achieve what I want, it doesn't matter how I achieve it. Okay, like somebody says, look, I need to feed my family, so it doesn't matter if I steal. Okay, he wants to have children, but he can't get married, so it doesn't matter if he, does it in a different way besides marriage. The means, it must be halal. You cannot say the end will justify the means. Okay, that's not acceptable. And similarly, when people because the funny thing is, these guys, they believe that jihad is haram. Working to establish the khilafah is haram. Working to establish the sharia is haram. Okay, all of these things they believe is haram, even though the end for that is clearly good and the means are halal. They will still say it's rejected. But when it comes to their rights and their huquq and their seeking what they want from the courts, they think, doesn't matter how I get it, as long as I get it in a halal way. Okay, but that's rejected as well, inshallah. Okay. Okay. There's one other argument we can bring, inshallah, and this is a key one, an important one as well. Some people, they say that nowadays there is no Islamic state to get our rights. Okay. So in order to get our rights, we have to go to this course. There's no other way. So we're under compulsion. Okay, darura. You need a chair without this. Okay, this one, so I'm going to spend a bit of time on, and I'll give you some good details about it, inshallah, as well. Okay. What we have is, there's a few different things it's a few different terms we need to be familiar with. One is called darura, okay, necessity. The other is called ittirar, compulsion. And the third one is called ikrah. Okay, duress. Now you notice that these are all very similar, but there's a very important difference for you to understand between all of them. Okay, a very important difference for us to understand between these. Now, obviously, every duress is necessity, is darura, and every compulsion is necessity, is darura. But not every necessity is compulsion or duress. Okay, so we understand that. Okay. With each of these, every duress is a form of necessity, and every compulsion is a form of necessity. But doesn't mean every necessity falls under compulsion or duress. Now, if we explain, darura means anything you need, anything which is vital for us. Okay, anything which is you cannot really go about your life without it. Okay, the basic needs and your basic necessities in life. Okay, so you need, for example, find which pen is good. Sounds good, inshallah. Okay, so we need, for example, okay, we need money. Okay, without money you can't trade. Without money you can't buy your food, and you can't get about and travel and do what you need to do. You can't buy and sell. And how are you going to, even if you have your own farm and you grow your own food, how are you going to buy what you need to plant the food and to plow the fields and to buy the whatever it is that you need, fertilizer or anything else? You need money. So without money, we can't really function as society, as a mujtama, as a society with continuous transactions between each other. We can't. You need as well food, okay, because we need to eat. You can't live without food. Okay, so all the time we need to have food. We need to have clothes. Okay, we need to have shelter. Okay, we need to have as well marriage. Okay, it's very important. Okay, without marriage, there'll be a lot of people who are, fasting every day of their life. You're going to have a very difficult life. People don't get married. If you don't have marriage, how are you going to have family? How are you going to have a new generation? The whole society is going to end. If nobody gets married, nobody has any children. So you need children as well. Okay, this is a necessity. Okay, woman needs husband. Okay, so therefore she needs husband and his wife. Okay, they need mahram for each other. How's a woman supposed to travel? She can't even go hajj without to have a mahram. So she needs to have marriage. You need to have family. You need to have as well knowledge, ilm. Okay, knowledge. You can't function without knowledge. Okay, whether that is knowledge of the deen or knowledge of the dunya. Okay, you need to have knowledge. If you don't have the skills you need, if you don't know how to count, how are you going to stop yourself getting shortchanged? You need to have study of the knowledge of the deen. You need to be able to do your worship and ibadah. If you don't learn from the Quran and the fiqh and the rulings of how to pray, how to fast, you won't be able to fulfill your duty. That's why we have something called al-ma'loom min ad-deen bit-tarura. What is known from Islam by necessity, because the knowledge is a necessity. We cannot function without it. Okay, so we need to have that knowledge. All of these things are called necessity. Okay, what else do we need as a necessity? Okay, we may need medicine. Okay, we may need why not? We'll put it in here as well. We may need a vehicle. Okay, could be that vehicle is a necessity. Okay, there's a hadith that says that all a man needs is a good wife, a good home, and a good horse. Okay, and he'll be happy. And if he has a bad wife, a narrow house, and a lame donkey, then he's going to have a difficult life. He's going to be miserable. Okay, because these are simple ingredients for him to have normal life. So these are all things that you need. These are all, it's all necessity for you. Okay, and that is for everybody. You people cannot function without that. We could say even, this is enough, inshallah. But what did Allah Ta'ala say about all of these necessities in relation to obeying Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and fulfilling His commands? Is it allowed for us to disobey Allah in order to achieve these things? Is that allowed? Well, Allah Ta'ala said, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't come close to zina. Don't come close to adultery. But I need children. How can I have children if I don't have, partner? And nobody wants to marry me. What do I do? He said, I can't afford a mahar. I don't have enough money. So what do I do? So he said, wants to have zina. Wants to have adultery. Does it become halal for him? No, it doesn't become halal for him. It's a necessity, but you can only seek it in halal means. So he said, look, I don't have enough money for a dowry. So what can I do? Let me steal it. Okay, but the marriage is necessity. If I don't have the money for marriage, then I won't be able to fulfill my necessity. So I must steal. I must do so. I must do this. No, it's not allowed to seek it except in halal. You can only seek it in halal. Okay, somebody could say, look, I can't afford to have children. I've got too many. Okay, I don't have enough money to feed them all. Okay, I need food, I need money, and if my children eat all my food, what am I going to have left? So he said, let me have an abortion, or let me kill one of my children. Allah Ta'ala says, do not kill your children out of fear of khashyat imlaq, out of fear of poverty. Meaning you're not allowed to disobey Allah because you're afraid of poverty. It's not allowed for you to fear Allah because you don't have enough food. you need to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, you're not here to, just because you want to seek your rizq, seek your wealth, doesn't mean you can seek it in haram means. Okay, I'll get to when you talk about starvation in a minute, because most of the time we're talking about food is always a necessity. It's not only when you're starving that food is suddenly becomes a necessity. You need food. You need to get food beforehand. You put it in the fridge. Otherwise, go home, empty out your fridge. What do you need it for? Okay, it's not a necessity until you're dying. No, it's always a necessity. You need food. You need money. You need clothes. All of these things, you need it. Okay, so somebody says, look, I need clothes. Clothes is a necessity. So I'm going to, as a man, I'm going to buy silk, and I'm going to buy gold, and I'm going to wear it. It's necessity. Yeah, but why don't you buy the cotton instead? You have another option. Why? Why you want to have the silk for? No, brother, I like it. And clothes are a necessity. I can't live without clothes. All these things are necessity, but you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in relation to them. Allah says, do it in this way, don't do it in that way. Buy and earn in halal, don't earn in haram. Eat halal, don't eat haram. Eat the slaughtered meat, don't eat the stunned meat. Okay? Drink the halal drink, don't drink the alcohol. Okay? He says to, for the men, don't wear gold or silk. Okay? So you don't wear gold or silk. Don't imitate the opposite gender in your clothes. Okay? It says as well, don't steal, don't gamble, don't deal with interest. You need a home, you need a house, you need shelter. Okay, it doesn't mean it's allowed for you to steal it. And give you one ayah inshallah in relation to this. Are these pens better, yeah? Surah 9 verse 24. We gave this one before, previously. Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاءُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاءُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره. He said, say, if your parents and your children and your brothers and sisters and your wives and your tribes, okay, all your marriage, husband and wife, and your children and your tribes and all of your family, okay, and if your money that you've been piling up and your business that you're afraid of losing, and your own homes, your shelter, وَمَسَاكِنُكُمْ, your own homes that you're living in, if any of these are dearer to you than Allah and His Messenger, dearer to you than the Quran and the Sunnah, obeying Allah, obeying His Messenger, وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ, and the jihad fi sabilillah, then wait until the punishment of Allah comes to you. Meaning even all of this necessity and maslahah is not an excuse for you to violate one hukm of Allah. One hukm of Allah. Like somebody could say, brother, if I go to jihad, then what about my home? Okay, I'm going to lose my council house. They're going to give it to somebody else. Okay, if I go to jihad, then what's going to happen to my money? What's going to happen to my business? I'm going to lose my business. If I go to jihad, when am I going to see my kids again? When am I going to see my wife again? Okay, well, if I go to jihad, then what am I going to do with my car? Okay, so people say, look, all this necessity, I can't go to jihad, akhi. It's not allowed for me to go to jihad because I need to look after all of these necessities. Okay, somebody say, if I go to jihad, what if I get killed? What if I lose an arm? What if I lose a leg? Okay, I need my arms. It's a necessity. It's darura. I need my arms and legs. This is not an excuse for you to give up the jihad, or let alone to do any of the haram. The priorities in Islam is to leave the haram first and then fulfill the duties. Allah said, even to leave one duty is not allowed for you to, in order to preserve all of these necessities, not enough for you to leave one duty, hukm of Allah. Let alone to do the haram, or the kufr, or the shirk, like the tahakum to the taghut. Rejected. Then you have ittirar and ikrah. Ittirar and ikrah are particular types of necessity. Okay? So, ittirar is, okay, life and death. Okay, life and death, and I'm going to put here really the only things that really come under this, because any exception, and this is a very important rule for us as well. Another principle, inshallah, for the Sharia principle we can give here, is, let me do it over here. It's better, inshallah. Okay, we say that whatever is specific, I'm going to give you two principles, inshallah. Whatever is specific can never be made general except with a divine evidence. Okay, and another principle, okay, whatever is unrestricted can never be restricted except with a divine evidence. Okay, my handwriting is improving. Alhamdulillah. Okay, these are two very important principles. Okay, al-khas yabqa ala khususihi illa bidalil. Okay, and al-mutlaq la yuqayyidu illa bidalil. Okay, whatever was specific will remain specific or will never be made general. Okay, except with the divine evidence. And whatever was unrestricted will never be made restricted except with the divine evidence. Okay, so this is the general rule and the unrestricted rule that we say is not allowed to violate or disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the sake of these needs. Okay, these needs and necessities that we have. It's not acceptable for us to disobey Allah for the sake of these. Okay, we don't just make everything haram, make it halal for us because of necessity, because of a need. Okay, otherwise everything's a need. Okay, I'm hungry, akhi, so let's have pork. Okay, it's not, no, you have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You obey Allah, you don't disobey Him. That's the unrestricted rule. The only exception you can make to that, the only way you can restrict that rule is if you have a divine evidence. Okay, so there is a divine evidence for certain exceptions. They are ittirar and ikrah. Ittirar is when you have life and death. Okay, starvation or thirst, and I can put in here as well medicine. Okay, also say illness, sorry. Okay, okay, you have illness, and each of these have an evidence from the Quran and Sunnah. That's why we accept it as an exception. Okay, but only when it's life and death. Okay, when it's life and death. So now we're talking about food is a necessity, but that doesn't mean I can do haram in order for me to eat unless it is life and death starvation. That's the only time when some haram foods become halal for me. Okay, some haram foods become halal for me. Okay, not everything. Some haram foods become halal for me. Okay, that's because of the ayah. To find the ayah. Before I forget, let me give you one ayah here first for this one. Surah Nahl, verse 107. Okay, it's an important one here as well. Okay, Surah 16 verse 107, Allah subhanahu says, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ اسْتَحَبُّوا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا عَلَى الْآخِرَةِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الْكَافِرِينَ. He says, that is because they preferred the life of this dunya over the hereafter. That is the one who disobeys Allah in order to enjoy the necessities of this life. In order to enjoy his time in this dunya, he wants his right back. He wants his TV back. He wants his car back. He wants to get paid back the money he's owed by from so-and-so. So he took him to the courts. For the sake of that little bit of dunya, he sold his akhirah. That is the disbelievers, what they did, where they went wrong. For the sake of seeking the pleasure and the life of this world, they give up the hereafter. Rather, they should give up their right in this dunya if there's no way for them to get it back without committing shirk, in order to save the hereafter and go to Jannah. Now the exception of starvation is in a couple of verses. Surah I'm going to need the Mus'haf for this one. Does anybody have a Quran? I've got Quran here, inshallah. To find it, inshallah. I might know where I can find it if I can't find it here. Have you got your internet on? Will it catch it? Tethering. Oh, you see, it's got it. Okay, I should be able to find it, inshallah. Just give me one moment, inshallah. Anyway, I'll give you the meaning of the ayah while waiting for the reference, inshallah. Okay, Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا حَرَمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةَ وَالدَّمَ وَلَحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. That we only made haram for you the dead meat and the blood and the flesh of the pig and whatever was killed by other than Allah's name. Okay, and then okay, here we go. Surah 2 verse 173. Okay, so Surah 2 verse 173. Okay, Surah 2 verse 173. Okay, this is one Allah Ta'ala says that He only made haram for you the dead meat and the blood and the pork and whatever was not slaughtered in the name of Allah. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And whoever had compulsion, okay, the compulsion, ittirar, okay, this word by the way is from the word darar, from harm. Ittirar is the one who has, been harmed because of that starvation and is going to be, actually going to be harmed. Okay, so necessity really is talking about what the things. If you don't have it, you will be harmed. The ittirar, now you've been harmed. You are in the harm. فَمِنِ الطُّرَّ is the past tense. The harm has reached him. He's already started to feel the pain of that starvation, and if he doesn't eat, he's going to die. فَمَنِ الطُّرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. The conditions on this, he said, okay, not rebellion, okay, conditions, and not transgressing, transgressing. Okay, غير باغ ولا عاد. He said, was not rebellion and is not transgressing. What's rebellion? Rebellion is you don't really need it. Okay, you don't really have compulsion. You have other choices available to you. Okay, like somebody, he could be starving to death. He could be really genuinely starving. Okay, so now he is hungry, but he's got a choice. He can have pork or he can have lamb, both available to him. Okay, he can't just say, as I'm starving, I'll go for the pork. No, because he has a choice. He can take the other option. Okay, maybe the other option is smaller. There's only a little bit left, or maybe it doesn't taste as nice for whatever reason. Okay, maybe he's somebody. To be honest, I don't know what pork tastes like. Apparently, the kuffar like it. Okay, maybe he likes pork and he doesn't like the lamb. Okay, or he doesn't like chicken. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, or like me, maybe I have the option of fish, very bony, small fish. Okay, and you have the option of pork. I still have to eat the fish because the fish is halal for me, but the pork is haram for me. Okay, if I don't, then it's out of rebellion because I had the choice, but I chose to do the haram. Like somebody says to you, Akhi, the car is necessity. I can't live without it. In the first place, that will never come under ihtirar, because the car is not food or drink and is not illness. Okay? The ihtirar is about life and death, starvation and thirst. This ayah is specific. The ayah is specifically about the food. He said, it's haram for you to eat the dead meats, or the blood, or the pork, or the meat that's been slaughtered other than the name of Allah. Obviously other things that we mentioned in other verses as well, you can mention that as well. But specifically about food and drink, about eating pork or drinking blood, that's what is haram. About that he said, whoever was compelled, had compulsion to eat and drink these haram things, then there's no sin. فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, then there's no sin upon him, and Allah is Ghafur Rahim, all forgiving, all merciful. So this ayah is specific about food and drink. Don't make it suddenly, therefore allowed to steal, therefore allowed to gamble, therefore allowed to have mortgage and interest and riba, therefore allowed to commit adultery. No, it's not about, oh, the only way I can have children in the whole world, the only possible way is for me to commit adultery, okay, or to commit zina. Okay, so does it become halal? No, it doesn't become halal. It doesn't matter if that's the only way. That is not about food and drink. Not about life and death, food and drink. There's no ayah or hadith about that. Somebody says, the only way I can get married, the only possible way is to marry a Hindu, because all the Muslims are taken. Does it become halal for him? No. It doesn't become halal. Just because something is a necessity, okay, in general, mean you need it for your life, otherwise life becomes difficult, doesn't mean it becomes halal to use haram means for that, just because you can't get it in any other way. Unless there's an evidence. And the evidence for this one, 22173, is specific about food and drink. You can mention it about both of these. Food and drink. Okay? And I'll give you one other verse as well in this one, inshallah. Surah 16, verse 115. Okay? It's the same thing about the food, exactly the same, just slightly different wording, but basically it's the same thing. غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ, without rebellion, without transgression. So the first one we said, not rebellion. It means to be real starvation, and he must have no other choice. Okay? Not doing it just because he wants to, not doing it out of his desire, but I want to eat the haram meat. Okay? Like we have issue in the UK of stunned meat. The majority of the meat, even when it's labelled halal, is actually haram, stunned. Somebody could say, brother, look, there's no HMC, no unstunned places near where I live. So I have to go all the way, 10 miles, and catch the bus to get any halal food. Okay, any halal meats. So can't I just eat the stunned meats? That's called rebellion. He did it out of rebellion. Not because he really had starvation. Okay, not because he really had no other choice, but because he wants to eat the meat. He says, look, I don't like veggie burger, I don't like veggie burger, I don't like fillet of fish, so I need to have meat. I can't live without meat, he said. That person is doing it out of rebellion because he wants to, not because he's really starving. The last one is not transgressing. Don't go beyond the limits. Now, okay, you're starving. Okay, you're genuinely starving. If you don't eat something now, you're going to have, you're going to die. And the only food available to you is the dead meats. Okay, the dead meats is the only thing available to you. So what do I do? I call my friends, I have Bertie, happy birthday to you. We have big party, everybody happy. Eat lots and lots of food until our bellies are like this and we're burping and everything and go to sleep. That's called transgressing. The permit is there in order to remove the compulsion, remove that harm from you. As soon as that harm is removed, as soon as you have enough to help you survive, you cannot have any more. You no longer have any permit to have any more food. That's called al-ittirar, compulsion. Okay? And this is different from duress as well. We'll talk about duress in a minute. Illness, from other evidences. Because the Prophet ﷺ permitted the Sahaba to have medicine which used haram things. Like the hadith in Bukhari about a group of people who fell ill. And they consulted the doctor from Persia, and he said that they should drink the urine of the camel, okay, as a medicine. Because they had some medicine. So they drank the urine and made them better. The urine of the camel is haram because it's najasa, okay, it's prohibited, it's not something we normally drink. We don't drink urine. Okay, just as we don't drink the blood. So normally it wouldn't be allowed. But it was allowed for them because of a medical permit, because of a genuine case. Doctor said you need this to cure your illness. So they had the permit to drink something which is normally haram. Similarly, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, radiallahu anhu, he was a companion who used to have a skin problem. So the Prophet ﷺ, he permitted him to wear silk. Okay, for him to wear silk because of his illness. So it was a permit for him specifically. Or it could be that you put the men have to wear the henna, the mendi, as a medicine, not as a decoration like a woman, but as a medicine. Okay, so they have a problem with their nails, so they put it on their nail because of the medicinal properties. Okay, fair enough. Okay, normally not allowed for him. Or another companion, he lost his nose in the battle, and he used to put something to cover it, and it started to smell and become rotten. So he said, why don't you make a nose out of gold and you wear it? So he made a nose out of gold and he wore it. Normally, it's not allowed for a man to wear gold, but for him, it was a permit. So you can see there's a permit in the Sharia for medicinal reasons and illness, or for you to use some haram things as a genuine medicine. And there's a dispute and difference of opinion about alcohol. Some of the ulama said, okay, that this permit in this ayah is not only specific for food, it's specific only for those foods mentioned in the ayah. This is what some of the ulama said. Okay, they said the ayah only mentions the dead meat, the blood, the pork, and the unslaughtered meat. So they say only these things become halal if you are starving. But they said other things that have been prohibited to drink, like alcohol, it will never be permitted. This is what some of them said. Others, they said, no, it's permitted to have the alcohol if you are dying of thirst, but not to use it as a medicine. Okay, because the hadith of Rasulullah said that the alcohol or the khamr is not medicine, it's a poison. Okay, so they said not allowed to use it as a medicine. Others, they said that the alcohol itself is not a medicine, but if it's used to make other medicines, then you can use it in that medicine as well. So you can see how careful the scholars were, the ulama were, not to apply the ayah in something that doesn't belong. Okay, like insurance and mortgage and voting and all the haram that you want to commit, and the kufr and the shirk and tahakum to the taghut. They didn't allow you to commit all of that just because this ayah says you can eat pork if you're starving to death. Okay, they never said that. This is specifically and with these conditions, not done because you want to out of rebellion, nor transgressing going more than you need to survive, because it's only a matter of life and death for you to survive. That's the only permit of compulsion of ittirar. Okay, so the word ittirar, I said, is from the word darar. Okay, from the harm. Okay, which means harm. Okay, is when somebody, he's been afflicted with this harm, he's actually been harmed now, and if he doesn't eat it, he will face that harm immediately. Okay, I mean the only way to lift that harm is for him to eat one of these foods. So he has permit to eat the haram food, drink the haram drink, okay, like camel urine or something else, or other najasa, impure things, or as medicine for his illness, then they have that permit of compulsion. Ikrah, duress. Okay, duress. Duress is from the word, I use a different color to help us. Okay, from the word kariha. Okay, to hate. How much time do we have? Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, from the word to hate. Ikrah literally means to make you do something you hate. Okay, is to force something you hate on you. That's literally what the ikrah means linguistically. Okay, in the Sharia, it means, okay, to physically force you to do something, okay, which you hate against your will. Okay, just against your will. So you no longer have any irada. You no longer have any will in what you're doing. You have no other option available to you. Okay, so the duress involves now a second party, involves somebody else. Ittirar is just you, it's just yourself. You're starving because you haven't eaten, not because somebody beat you or tortured you or threatened you. Okay, it's because you're hungry, because you've fallen ill. You have an illness now, so you need to take medicine. That's all by yourself. Ikrah involves somebody else. Okay, so it involves somebody forcing you. Okay, with a threat of violence. And I'm going to go in more detail about this in a minute, inshallah, as well. What type of violence? Okay. Okay, to do something against your will, while You hate it in your heart. Okay, and obviously we mentioned the ayah about this before. The ayah, this one. (16:106) is the ayah for this one. 16:106, Allah Subhanahu says that whoever commits kufr, okay, whoever commits kufr in Allah after they had iman, that's right, 16:106. Okay, after they had iman, okay, man kafara billahi min ba'di imanihi illa man ukriha wa qalbuhu mutma'innun bil iman, except for the one who was forced, had ikrah, he was forced to do it, okay, against his will, while his heart was full of iman. Okay, while his heart was full of iman. But then Allah said as well, even if you were forced, but if your heart was in favor of the kufr, then you have no excuse. Okay, the symbol وَلَكِنْ مَنْ شَرَحَ بِالْكُفْرِ صَدْرًا فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. He said, but if your heart was happy with it, even if you were forced, but your heart was happy with it, okay, then you have no excuse. The curse of Allah is on you, and you have a severe punishment. Okay, so it must have the condition that in your heart you reject what you've been forced to do, because people can force you to do something with your limbs, but they can't force your heart. Nobody can force what's in your heart. It's impossible. Okay, because your heart is your own. It's up to you. In your heart you may hate it and reject it, but physically they force you. This has conditions though as well. Okay, it has conditions, because again, you can't just abuse and call everything duress. Okay? Okay, before we give the conditions, I'll just make the point. Ikrah is a permit in general to do anything. Some ulama said is not a permit to do shirk. Okay, only kufr and haram. Others they said it's a permit to do everything. The stronger opinion, as far as Sheikh Omar taught us, is there is permit to do any type of kufr, including the shirk. He used to have the opinion that the shirk is not a permit, doesn't have permit for duress, but then he changed his opinion after that. And we said that the evidences for the duress being a permit is general, it's unrestricted, and there's no evidence to restrict it to say not to include the shirk, because the hadith Rasulullah said, my ummah has been forgiven whatever they do under duress. There's no exception be made to say only if it's kufr and not for the shirk. Okay, obviously those who say that it's not the shirk, they quote, for example, this ayah as well mentions the kufr specifically, man kafara billah, and they also mention some of the examples of the Sahaba, like Bilal, he didn't take the permit of duress because he was ordered to do shirk, but Ammar, he did take the permit of duress, although because he was ordered to do the kufr and not shirk. Obviously this is not really strong in the first place. In the first place, this ayah was not revealed until after they were tortured, and Allah revealed about what the permit they had in the first place as well. Plus, the evidences are still general, and shirk is still a form of kufr as well. There's nothing to indicate otherwise. But that's just a side point, inshallah. But in general, the ikrah is a permit for everything, including to eat all the haram meat, including to commit kufr, and even the shirk, even to hakum to the taghut is a permit for you if you are forced to do it under duress. Okay, because here now you no longer have irada, you no longer have will, because you're being forced to do it against your will. Okay, but what constitutes duress? Okay, this is the real question. Okay, what constitutes real duress? Okay, because somebody could say that look, if I don't do it, then they're going to refuse my application for citizenship. Okay. Okay, for example, they say, look, I want to get passport, and if I don't give oath of allegiance to the Queen, they won't give me citizenship. So I'm under duress. That is not called duress. Okay, not called duress. Even though they said to you, give oath of allegiance, the fact that they said give it does not mean that it is duress. It must have a threat attached to it. Okay. Well, this is the wrong pen. What color don't we have? I can use the red, inshallah. Okay. The conditions. Okay. Must be a threat, okay, to your life, okay, or bodily harm. There's two types of duress. In general, you have the complete duress, okay, ikrah al-kamil, which is threat to your life. The same says to you, if you don't do it, I will shoot you in the head. Put a gun to your head and say, if you don't do it, I will kill you. That is the complete, full duress. And you have the lesser duress. It could be somebody threatens to torture you, okay, or to torture your children, for example. This is a form of lesser duress, but must involve threat to your life. It can't be, for example, if you don't do it, then I will, I will steal your car. Okay, steal my car. I'll buy a new car. Okay, it's not called duress. Okay, if you don't do it, I'm going to fine you £20. Like in Australia, it's compulsory to vote. Okay, in Australia, it's compulsory for you to vote. Legally, it's a crime if you don't vote in Australia. So people that start to ask the shuyukh, is it allowed for us to vote? What's the hukum? This is the shirk, democracy, can we vote? What's the situation? And people give him fatwa, yeah, okay, you're under duress now because the law says, and they threaten to punish you if you don't vote, so it's allowed to vote. But what's the punishment though? Punishment is you have to pay $20. Okay? You have to pay $20. So, okay, pay $20. You pay $20 for the privilege of being muwahhid and not committing mission. I'll pay you $20, no problem. Subhanallah. What is the big deal? They won't turn that into duress. It must be real threat to your life or bodily harm. You must have conviction or least amount of doubt. Okay? That they are capable of carrying out the threats. Okay? Yeah, the lesser duress, by the way, it does include as well things like imprisonments. Like somebody says that they will kidnap you and hold you for a long time. This is also a form of bodily harm to you as well. Okay? But you need to have conviction or least amount of doubt, be convinced that they are capable of fulfilling what they say to you. Okay? Because it can't just be, used as an excuse, and you don't really think that they are, capable or even willing to do it. Some people, they make empty threats. If you believe he doesn't mean it, then why are you going to do it for? Why are you going to do the shirk for? Okay? Or if you think they're not capable of doing it at all, they don't have the power to do what they're threatening you with, there's no point. Like a kid comes up to you, one of these EDL kids, okay, when a 10-year-old boy comes up to you and says, I'll beat you up. Yeah, that's not duress. It's a 10-year-old boy. It's a little boy. He can't do anything to you. Don't start to make all haram halal because somebody made a threat to you. They're not capable to carry out. They're not capable of carrying it out against you. It doesn't make it duress. Okay. The other thing is it must be real and imminent. Okay, it must be a real threat, not an imaginary one, and not hypothetical one, and not something about I might do it, he might do it, is going to do it, this is going to happen. Not that it's got to be a real threat. Okay, like somebody says to you, we will, they've captured you and they've threatened you and said, we will torture you. They got a knife to your throat and said, we are going to stab you. That's a real threat, it's an imminent threat. But if it's something like, well, if I don't do it, then what if, elephants start to fly and they meet the pigs in the sky, and then BNP comes to power, and then maybe they're going to deport us all and send us back home. Subhanallah, I'm under duress. That's not called duress. This is you having a bad dream. Okay? Daydreaming as well. You do it to yourself. Subhanallah. It's even worse. Somebody putting it into his own mind this nightmare. Okay? Like somebody says to you, otherwise the boogeyman is going to get you. Vampire is going to come out of the graves. Okay? This is not real. Okay, it's not real threats. Has to be real threats, not what if the BNP come to power, what if you keep coming to power, what if this happens, what if that happens. It's not about that. Okay, it's not about you imagining something, or something might happen, or somebody says to you, if you don't do it, I'm going to come back and get my friends. If in fact he needs his friends, it means he can't do anything to you. That's why. Okay? Don't have this reaction to anything a kafir says to you, they suddenly become duress. Okay? Like again, the laws are hypothetical. Okay? Just because the law says, if you don't have insurance, then we're going to arrest you, we're going to fine you, we're going to take away your car, and so on. Okay? It doesn't mean it's going to happen. Okay? It doesn't mean it's going to happen. They need to catch you first. They need to find you first. Okay? Then they need to get everything right first, and it might happen, it may not happen. Just the fact that there is a law in place doesn't mean anything. Okay? I remember, once upon a time, they had bail conditions for me when I was waiting for trial for the cartoon demonstration. They had bail conditions on me. Now I cannot give basically a public speech to 3 or more people in any public place. I can't give a speech to 3 people in any place. Even if I was to turn around on the bus and there are 3 people there, I can't talk to them at the time. That's the condition they had. Okay? So people started advising me, brother, stop giving talks, don't give da'wah anymore, it's not allowed, it's you got the permit. So I asked the Sheikh, do I have a permit, to stop doing public da'wah now? Okay, public da'wah is fard. Okay, it's compulsory. The Sharia says. So do I have the permit not to give public da'wah because the bail condition? He said, if you stop giving public da'wah and you think you're no longer fard upon you because some kafir said so, you become mushrik. That's called shirk ta'ah. That's called obeying the mushrik. It's called changing the law of Allah because the kafir said so. Allah said, you must give public da'wah. The kafir says, don't give public da'wah. Okay, I'll obey you, Mr. Kafir. I'll disobey Allah. That's called shirk in Allah. Okay? So we don't say, just because they said, this is the law, if you don't do it, we're going to punish you. That's not called duress. Okay? Unless now they actually capture you, arrest you, and start to threaten you with bodily harm and actual real duress, only then does it become duress. Okay? So not hypothetical. I'll put here, not hypothetical. Okay. Number 4. Okay, I'll put here. You have conviction. That you cannot fight them back. Okay, defeat them or defend yourself, we say. Okay, defeat them. Okay, so it could be, for example, somebody wants to rob you. They pull out a knife in the street and they want to rob you. Say, give me your wallet. Okay, so you can feel, look, I don't think I can handle him, so he gives him his wallet. Fair enough. Okay, and even it could be even worse than that. They could threaten you. But if you feel that now they've threatened you and warned you, but you feel you're able to overpower them and stop them, that means that you're not really under duress. Rather, he's the one under duress. You should be telling him what to do, because you're able to stop him. You're able to overpower him and to defend yourself. This comes connected with number 5 as well, so you can really put them together. Or number 5, it doesn't matter how many numbers we do it really. Okay, you have conviction that you cannot escape. Okay, let me use the other pen. This is not very good. Okay, including by hijrah. Okay, so the duress, in order for it to be duress, you need to have conviction as well that you are not going to be able to escape from them. Okay, to escape their control. Meaning there needs to be some form of, arrest or tying your hands or surrounding you and capturing you, where you are no longer able to escape them. Not you are free at large, thundering, wandering, do as you like, and then you claim that you're under duress. Okay, it could be, for example, that you're convinced that maybe you're at home, but they are following you. They've got a car outside, or they are looking out for you on the borders, you're not able to escape the country. So, there's still a form of capture and house arrest kind of thing. It could be like this. Okay, so but there must be some form of capture. Not that you are completely free at large to do what you like and go where you like and then claim you're under duress. There's some people like this. Some people say to you, we're under duress and forced and we must vote in this country. We have no choice. But every year he goes to Hajj. Okay, and Umrah as well in the middle. Not only that, you see him off shopping in Morocco, and you see him going off somewhere else to another country on holiday. If you're under duress, what do you come back for? If you're under duress, being forced to commit shirk in Allah, why are you going to go all the way to another country where you're going to escape from this evil oppressor that's captured you, and then you go back to him? Come back to him and you knock on the door and say, look, I escaped. Come and capture me. You forgot to tie my hands. You see how easily I got back? I want don't let me go out next time. That's not called duress. That's somebody he's pretending. He's pretending. If he's really under duress, next time he goes to Hajj, he shouldn't come back. Because now you're talking about life and death situation. If somebody's telling you, I'm going to torture you or kill your children if you don't do so and so, and you're able to escape and run away, why are you going to come back to him and tie yourself back up again? Okay? You can't have it both ways. So the duress must be a situation you're really forced. You really have no other option. There is actual direct threat to your life or torture, and they are able to do it and they will do it. It's a real threat and you're not able to overcome them, nor are you able to escape or make hijrah from that place. Then you can claim that you're under duress. Okay? Then you can claim that you are under duress. But otherwise, it's not really called the duress. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he refused to take the permit even when he was under duress. And when somebody came to him in the prison, remember he had the big test where the ruler was saying the Quran is creation, is created, and he was the only one left saying is not creation, is the word of Allah. So they imprisoned him and they lashed him and they beat him, and everybody was pleading with him, saying to him, just say that it's creation. And so somebody even said, look, you've been lashed. Okay, you've been lashed now. You have the permit of Ammar bin Yasir, of the ayah of Iqra, of duress. Okay, why don't you just say it with your tongue, but you hate it in your heart? Imam Ahmad, he said, Ammar bin Yasir was tortured, and then he committed the kufr. But you people, you were not lashed or harmed or anything, and you compromised. Okay? And he said even by himself, and now I'm the only one left. He said, look, if I don't speak the truth, how are the people going to know now? So you see, when people, they take the permit before they have the permit, it doesn't count. It's not valid. It's not correct. Okay? It's not really duress. Ammar bin Yasir, he was tortured so badly, the scars on his back were there until the day he died. His mother was killed in front of him in the most humiliating way. His father was killed. And only after all of that, he gave up and he said a few words of kufr. And since he said it, he was crying with tears all over his face and beard, going to Rasulullah, terrified and so angry with himself and upset and sad at what he done. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Ammar bin Yasir, he was full of iman from his head to his toes. And when you asked him, why are you crying? He didn't say, because my mother died, or my father died, because I was tortured. He said, because I spoke badly about you. Okay? Because he was forced to do something, he really hated it. He hated what he had to do. People today, they vote in the elections, they call it duress, and then they're cheering and celebrating, having a party when their MP wins, or their mayor wins. And they're carrying, I remember at the time they won the election, they were carrying this man, George Galloway, on his shoulders. On their shoulders. And that's called, like Ammar bin Yasir, crying, hating what he did after torture. They were not forced. They didn't hate it. They were pleased and happy with it. In fact, they hate you for daring to say that the democracy is shirk. They're more angry with you than they are with the people who are forcing them to vote, apparently. Rather, they're happy with them. So the duress is not, like what people they want to say to you. Yes, everything become halal. So what the people, they claim, they say, look, because we have no Islamic State, therefore we are under compulsion or duress to go for tahakum to the taghut. Now, if that was a case of they arrest you and force you and drag you to the court in chains, kicking and screaming, okay, like in the case of Mujahid, Michael Adubalajo, in fact they couldn't even bring him to court. They were terrified because when he kicked and screamed, they ran away. Okay, so even then, that's called the real duress. Okay, because even in the courts they were fighting with the guards. Even in the courts they were resisting. You see, that's called somebody, he was forced to go to the court. He didn't make tahakum, he had no irada. He was there because he had no choice, because they dragged him. But something else, what those people are talking about, they're people not talking about the government arrests you and take you to court. They're talking about, you know, Abu Abdullah stole my car, so I file a case against him and take him to court. Who told you to do that? Who forced you? Who threatened you? Who tortured you? Who did anything to you? Who arrested you? What made you go to court and take a man to court? That's not called duress, it's not called compulsion. Even if you lose your car and you lose your money, okay? Even if you lose all of these things, okay, it doesn't matter. Even if it was £1 million you lost, nobody forced you. That's not called compulsion or duress. Okay? Only if they really force you. Okay? Like the people in Guantanamo Bay, they've been forced to go to these military courts. Okay? Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, okay, they tried to force him. They appointed for him one-sided military lawyer, okay, which is part of the American government anyway, and just part of the prosecution really. Okay? Even then, what did he say? Okay, yes, defend me, take me to court. He sacked him. He said, no, I don't want you. Okay? You see, even then you see the real people who they hate the tahakum to the taghut. They don't want to go to tahakum even when they are forced. But the one who wants to go to tahakum even when they're not forced, they have no argument or excuse of compulsion or duress. And we shall run out of time, so we'll continue inshallah here next week. But so everybody happy, shall understand. We'll have some more evidences we can bring next time though as well on that point inshallah. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. Questions? Yes.
When somebody's in prison, I believe that the family can write to, for example, the local MP. Is that true? It's not considered to be tahakum, that's what I understood.
Yeah. Writing to an MP in general is not called tahakum. Unless you're writing to the MP to say, I want you to legislate so and so law. But generally what people they do with the MPs is they write letter to say, look, so and so has happened, it's out of order, the police are doing so and so, you know, can you look into the case, I'm your constituents and so on. So they make some phone calls, they write a letter, angry letter to the local council or the police or something, and out of respect for the MP, they get things done. That's allowed. It's not called tahakum, it's not kufr, it's not haram. It may be what we used to, obviously the reason why, you know, we avoid doing it in general as du'at, as people who are, you know, in a position of da'wah to the tawheed and open idharuddin and open call, confrontation against the taghut, is just as a matter of what is appropriate for a da'i. Okay, it's something which is not the appropriate thing for a da'i while he's condemning the tawaghit and all these things, to then write to the MP in a nice letter to say, no, please help me. It just doesn't look good or look appropriate. But technically it's not haram or kufr or anything like this. You know, it's allowed. And if somebody in a real hard time of duress, if they happen to do that, it's not a sin upon them for them to do that. Okay? Yes. Look, man. Yes.
The release of the prisoners, and obviously the person inside the jail has family, and sometimes we find people do it from outside, like family.
Obviously, if the person in prison obviously asks somebody to, you know, for example, you know, pass on their letter or application on their behalf, okay, then this is falls under the duress of the person because of his action. Okay, for example, because the one who launches an appeal, for example, in prison to the court, is the defendant. He's the one who's launching the appeal. Even you have solicitors and barristers, they're only acting on behalf of the person in prison. So it's his action, and for him it's allowed. So for the person who helps him in that, it's not prohibited for him to help him in that. But if somebody independently, they launch their own appeal on behalf of somebody else, without them, then obviously then it's not correct because they don't have that permit. Okay, they don't have that permit. And obviously solicitors, they have different roles. Solicitors in the UK, they don't go to the court and actually make the hakum. They don't actually go there and argue a case. They have barristers that do that and they represent the client. The solicitors, all they do is they do the research, they read up on all the books on the law, and they prepare a portfolio for the barrister to read and to use whatever he wants from there. And then the barrister goes in and they argue the case. Okay, so for the Muslim, if he acts as a solicitor to research the case for them, to what grounds they have legally, and then the person in prison was to launch an appeal and hire a lawyer and hire a barrister to argue that case in court, is not a problem for them to do that as well. Okay, and if they're family members, they help them in that as well. It's not a problem. Any other questions?
I heard a famous scholar still alive said that you can go to court for arbitration if like for example your partner is going to take your kids away. That is the permit.
Okay. This is a complicated issue. In general, the action of taking your wife or husband to court in order to get custody of the children is the hakum to the taghut, is shirk akbar, who takes the person out before Islam. The question is whether or not they have a permit of duress to do this or not. If somebody is in prison, and we were with some people in prison who their children were taken away because of terror case and so on, and from prison they launched these cases against the social work and social service and so on, they have the permit because they are under duress. In general, the one who's behind bars, we don't look to the actions as being done willingly because they are under a general position of duress. But the one who doesn't have that, they're free at large. They cannot start to take their spouse to court in order to get the children, even if their children are going to be taken away by their partner. It's allowed for them to take their children by force. Okay, mean to go knock on the door, break the door down if they have to. It's allowed. Is their children inside? Somebody's horrible to their children, they can go in there and take their children if they don't answer the door. It's allowed for them to do this. Now, people don't like to do that. Why? Because it's risky. But it's allowed. It's halal. And it's an option they have. Okay? They can take their kids and then make hijrah somewhere else, go far away. Okay? Go back to Pakistan, go back to Bangladesh. I remember there's a big case like this with one girl that was taken with the father to Pakistan, and the mother was a Christian woman in this country, and she was angry and campaigning, all these kind of things. But even legally, there's nothing they could do because he was the father. You can take the kids. It's not called kidnap. It's your own child, your own son, your own daughter. So you can take your kids and do that. That is allowed. Okay, it's no problem for somebody to do that, and they can enlist the help of their friends in the community. Take 10 brothers and say, look, I need to go get my kids. That is allowed if there's a real genuine case like this where it's involved. Or they can go to Sharia court. Go to Sharia court, let them sit down, and now let the judge, here you appoint somebody Muslim to judge whatever Allah revealed, and then accept their ruling after that, accept the judgment after that was to be decided. That is the best way. So there are many other options available to you. If there was a case where you've been taken to court by your wife or your husband, so they've initiated, they committed that kufr by doing that, and now you're being put in a position where there is a situation, your children being in danger of being taken away from you, here you have a permit not to go to the court for arbitration, but you can hire a solicitor, okay, and tell the solicitor, look, deal with my case for me. And so they can try to negotiate with the other side, agree some kind of settlement, write some letters, look at the case, find holes in the case and so on. And if the solicitor went to the court without your knowledge, then you won't be accountable for that. But you should not ever go to the court to fight this case yourself. You can write a letter to the court, you can explain to the judge, look, this is what's happened, it's not right, it's not correct, and so on. And you can do these things, but you cannot go and argue that case in front of the judge. It's not allowed for them to do that. Okay? Unless there was something else involved which made it duress, okay, but generally it's not going to consider it a form of duress. Okay? And if you want to think about the ayah I gave before as well in relation to this, Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاءَكُمْ وَأَبْنَاءُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ. Okay, say if your fathers and your children and your brothers and sisters and your wives and your tribes وَأَمْوَالًا تَفْضَمُوهَا, and your money that you have built up, وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا, and your business that you fear that you're going to lose, وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا, and your homes that you live in, أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره. If that is the idea to you, then Allah and His Messenger and the jihad fi sabilillah, then wait until the punishment of Allah comes to you. So, for one hukum you cannot violate it, let alone for the greatest shirk, the greatest crime, shirk in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, unless there's actual genuine duress involved, is not acceptable as a permit in that situation. Okay. Obviously, the duress, remember as well, is not something which is as well fixed. It is subject from person to person. People have different forms of duress, and what is an imposition on one person that they cannot handle, okay, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't the same. Maybe somebody else, he can handle it, but he can't handle it. So they have relative and subjective limits to what the duress is, and people that could differ and have the ijtihad that, look, I am under a form of genuine duress. If they really feel it in genuine situation, they should ask a fatwa, and then they will have a specific ruling for them, inshallah. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll stop there. Nothing about talk. نقول قولي هذا ونستغفر الله.